Hey guys, welcome to another Line Before podcast. Got a great guest this evening. Just letting you know before, look us up www.nighthawk-radio.com. You can find us on Live 360 app. Look up Nighthawk Radio. Facebook, you can find us on Nighthawk Radio as well. YouTube, Spotify, also Nighthawk Radio. You be sure to listen Thursdays at 7. Two Girls, One Cut. If you're interested in serial killers, the Mackenzie Hour right after that, Thursday at 8. And you never know what he's going to talk about. It's usually some kind of ghost, Bigfoot, cryptid, something, whatever. Also, check out Awakening Radio with Joe and I Sundays at 7. But right now, we've got author, motorsports historian, author of a comic called The Adventures of Ruby Starfire. And I've known this guy for a little bit. We have some very, very just interesting conversations, man. It just will just kind of blow your mind because it goes down rabbit holes left and right. Dylan Hale. Dylan, how's it going, man?
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Yeah, man, no problem. You know, we have very interesting conversations about life, about religion, about God, about miracles. And in many of the conversations that we've had, I've told you, dude, we just made a radio show. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so, I wanted to bring that on tonight and just kind of let people listen into our conversation because to me, it's interesting, but to the world, it may not be. But to us, we, I don't, there's a lot of times that we agree to disagree. And to me, we need a little more of that. Just because you disagree with me, don't mean I have to hate you.
Yeah, exactly. It's
And
it's best to have healthy conversations and healthy debates over these sort of things, and it's
sure,
fun.
sure. And I mean, if you can even take that into politics, just because you disagree with me, don't mean I have to hate you. It just means we believe different. And I'm a firm believer that there's two kinds of people in this world that one believe with facts and the other believe with feelings.
Yep, I agree with
And,
that.
you know, we don't have to hate each other just because we disagree. And we have put a division in this country that, with free speech and participation trophies, I say that a lot. But, if you don't agree with what I think, that's okay. We don't have to hate each other. We can just walk away thinking that each other's idiots. And I'm okay with that.
I think part of the problem is that a lot of people are looking at politics almost like a pseudo religion. There are people where their existence, their identity is the only thing that they are willing to talk about, and that is them, right? Whatever the political topic is, that is them.
Yeah,
So,
I see
and,
that. Yeah.
and you see that a lot with religions as well. You have people that, I am a Christian, I am a Muslim, I am whatever. That is their whole identity. So it's kind of gone down the same lines for whatever reason, and I'm not entirely sure why, but it does make for a very interesting conversation. And I think that these are discussions that need to be had, whether it's religion or politics, because that's the only way we're going to come to a better conclusion as a society.
Yeah, and I couldn't have said it better. I mean, if well, I mean, just for one, me and you talk about miracles, and we have kind of a certain agreement that miracles do happen without a doubt. But where do they come from?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's happened here recently, if you follow the racing world, is there was this horrendous crash at the Nürburgring during what they called, I think it's the tourist runs, where they let, normal people go out onto the track and do a lap around the track for a certain amount of money. They had a Porsche attempt to overtake a BMW. The BMW moved to the right to try to let this car by, and then changed his mind at the last second. The two cars came together, they hit the guardrail, and the Porsche ended up exploding.
Mm.
Real nasty accident. You can find the video of it online if you're so interested. But the good thing about that is both drivers walked away, and that is nothing short of a miracle, especially in street cars. So
Oh,
this
yeah.
is what kind of got the gears turning in my head is okay, do you call that an act of God? Or do you call that the happenstance of all the safety equipment that are put into these modern cars, all the engineering, all the stuff? Or is it just complete luck? Is it just the these people believe that they lived through a miracle because obviously they survived this horrendous accident? But is it just that what did you call it? The God part of your mind
The
making them
God,
think that they have lived through a miracle?
right.
What's your opinion on that?
Okay, so you got to look at it at a couple different ways. One, there are rules and safety standards that even though you're on the Nürburgring with just a street car, there's probably some kind of safety measures taken. Um, with that particular crash, it was pretty horrendous crash. Um, but did here we go. This is going to go down a rabbit hole. So if it goes back to if say like a doctor, okay, saves a life through an emergency surgery. Do you thank that doctor, or do you thank God for giving that doctor the knowledge and the know-how to do that surgery?
Yeah,
The
and a good
same,
point.
the same as with those cars. Do you thank God for giving the people the knowledge to make the safety equipment to put in that car, even though it was a street car? Or is it luck or happenstance? Now, going to the God part of the brain in miracles, um, some say, and this is not necessarily how I believe, but I've heard this analogy or this I guess theory that you have the ability to heal yourself with inside your own brain. We just don't know how to turn that switch on and off. Not we don't know. It just sometimes it clicks on. You're cured from cancer, you're cured from heart disease, you're cured whatever the case may be. Not every person gets that. But is it in your brain to switch on that you don't know you switched on somehow to heal yourself, or was it divine intervention?
Uh, that's a good question. I do want to give the listeners a little bit of background here about a previous conversation me and you have had.
Okay.
Um, in the past, me and Tracy have had discussions about whether God interacts with us in a like individual sense, as in does he guide our fate? Does he interact with our lives on an everyday basis? Or has he created a system which works automatically through the systems of the universe so that when he does need to act, it is sparingly and limited? And I think in a case of like a doctor or in the case of this accident, I think this is more a case of the systems of the universe working out in a specific way so that it wasn't a miracle that God intervened to save these people's lives. It was everything else in the universe, the systems working as God designed them so that these people would not pass away from this accident. And it's a similar thing for a doctor, right? The doctor has to be trained. They have to go through all this, documentation and certification to be able to do a surgery on somebody to save their life. Um, I think that that is all a system that we humans interact with on a constant basis, right?
Right.
But if it's a split second decision, under pressure, maybe somebody's had, been shot and they're bleeding, their heart's damaged from the wound, and it is a split second decision from that doctor to do a certain thing to save this person's life. That I think is there is a chance that that is God's hand leading that doctor to do that sort of thing versus a more normal surgery where it is mostly training and the systems at play. And the example that I used to kind of elaborate this in a little bit more of an easy to understand way, look at the assassination attempt on Donald Trump.
Okay.
The everything that happened that day, every single system that the universe had to protect a presidential candidate failed. The only thing that saved his life was him turning his head at the very last second for that bullet to miss. That is God's hand. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, and this is kind of how these conversations go. If, say, someone is shot and it is a life, a split decision, live or die type thing, and this particular person dies, was it God's will for them to die?
Ooh, that's interesting. Um,
So basically, if your number is up, no matter what happens to you that day, your number is up. Whether you get hit by a car, you get shot, you have a heart attack, lightning strikes you, a plane lands on you, or you get stung by a bee and you're allergic. Is that the day that God has put aside for you to die?
that's a very, very interesting question. And I, I'll be honest, I'm gonna have to think about it for just a minute here. But kind of walking through my thoughts, right? Um, this kind of goes back to, again, another previous conversation. Unfortunately, the listeners didn't get to listen in on, talking about fate. If
Right.
fate and, again, God's hand determining everything that we do exists. Um, I question my question would be, person comes in, they get shot. They are destined for whatever reason to die because God has said so. But somehow the doctors pull off a human miracle and the person lives. Okay? The next day they're walking out of the hospital, they feel great, and they get hit by a bus. That has happened in history. Stupid things like that has happened.
That's my
Is that
life.
God's will or is that an accident? So I think in that case, it is God's will. Because at some point, if a string of bad things continue to happen to you and you don't deserve it, then that is one of those things where the system of the universe is not working as it should, and that has to be some sort of challenge, some sort of interference from a higher being of some sort. That's the way I look at it.
That sounds like
And
an episode or a section of Final Destination to me.
well, I think about what was the section of the Bible that me and you were speaking about where Lucifer challenged God to one of his most loyal men. Um,
That's a oh gosh,
Sorry to spring that on you,
give me a minute. I
but
mean, keep going. I'll think of it.
effectively the story goes that
Job. It was
Lucifer.
Job. Why didn't I think
Oh,
of that? Job.
yeah.
Yeah.
Effectively, the story goes that Lucifer wanted to prove that this man who had nothing ever happen to him would turn on God if he did everything, negative to him, right?
Yes. He
And
could
so
do everything but kill him.
everything but affect his health at first. And so he goes and he, takes away his home, he slaughters his children, he does all this horrible stuff, and Job does not stray. He
Right.
continues to believe in God.
Right.
And then Lucifer comes back to God and says, well, you didn't let me affect him personally, so of course it's not going to affect his view on sorry, his view on you. So then he goes back and affects his health, and he continues to stay strong and say, well, this is obviously God's will. This is what is supposed to happen to me.
But
Um,
even throughout history, people have tempted God. I mean, we can even go back to Pharaoh and um, shoot, my mind is slipping bad. Um, shoot, never mind. Keep going.
well, I think that it is impossible from my point of view, as from what I have seen and what I've experienced in my life. It's impossible to deny the existence of some sort of higher being. be that we generically call him God. Every single holy book has their own version of this supreme leader, be that Jesus Christ or um I guess Muhammad had his own was Muhammad claimed that he was a deity of it. No, sorry, Muhammad was not a deity. He was a he
Was
was
a
a
prophet.
yes, a prophet for a deity. That he
Yes.
said that originally that he was correcting the mistakes of the Christian faith, and eventually that led to the his death and then the split between the Sunnis and the Shiites. But that is the sort of way things go. For whatever reason, we humans, we tend to give um the same sort of deity figures the different names depending on what regions and religions we're from. So in my view, almost every holy book in the world is almost only every holy book in the world, in some way, shape, or form, relates or connects to each other.
Well, what I was getting ready to say for some reason my mind went blank, but I was talking about Moses. When Moses went to the Pharaoh and said, let my people go. Um, and
Your mind really is slipping there, Tracy.
yeah,
Good
well,
Lord.
I mean, we were talking about Abraham earlier, and there was Abraham, and there's been several of them we've talked about.
Yeah, sorry.
But It's okay. But when Moses went to the Pharaoh and said, this is going to happen, and it plainly says that in the Bible that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. And now the reason that in the Christian religion they say that he hardened Pharaoh's heart was to see the miracles of God, to see that God can turn the river to blood, can
The
and do all
swarm
these.
of locusts,
Yes, the locusts, the
the
frogs,
plagues,
the
the drought.
famine. Yeah. And then eventually it come down to every firstborn male child was going to die if you didn't put lamb's blood over the door, over the doorway. And even Pharaoh's own son was killed. And that's when they let the Israelites go. And then you eventually get to the parting of the Red Sea, 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. So
Whether or not clearly, okay, because there is a book written about those events, right?
right.
It is very, 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 especially considering they're all on real locations about real people. It's very, very unlikely that that is a work of fiction.
Oh, I agree. I
It
mean,
is, there
you can go,
absolutely
you can
has to be
stand at those,
some truth to it.
yes, you can stand at those places right now where Sodom and Gomorrah was, where you can stand where, water come out of the rock. You can stand where the Red Sea had parted. You can, you could find Noah's Ark.
Yeah,
They have
they
found it.
just found it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible in and of itself.
So, I mean, there is some physical evidence to back the Bible up.
Mhm.
So, but then we go back to, okay, if we talk about the so called God part of the brain, do we need to flip that switch to create a miracle somehow? Or does God flip that switch in you to create the miracle?
Uh, okay, that's an interesting.
Yeah, I
I
know.
think anytime a miracle occurs, okay, and when I say miracle, I am referring to it is clearly it absolutely has to be God intervening in our realm, in our existence, as some sort of thing that shouldn't normally happen. It is something outside the bounds of the normal systems in place, right?
Right.
If we're talking about like somebody, they have a small version of cancer, and then somehow, some way, this God part of the brain activates, and they suddenly don't have cancer anymore.
Okay.
Um, I'm not sure personally if that is a miracle in the sense of it is God's doing, but I do think, okay, now, okay, we're starting to dip our toes into the physical versus spirit or spiritual realm of things.
Uh-huh.
If God has some say of over our souls, over our existence outside of this bodily realm, which, of course, if you're a Christian, if you're actually, if you're almost any religion, you believe that they do, be that, heaven or hell or, Valhalla or whatever you want to say, right?
Right.
Um, do if God is able to affect your brain and affect your soul in such a way that your self is able to heal itself, I don't know if I don't know if you can call that a miracle. It is in the sense of something miraculous has happened,
Hmm.
but it is not. I don't know. I guess my hesitation is it is not obvious enough to say it is outside of the realm of what we can do normally. Because
Okay.
human beings can heal from almost anything given enough time. If we
Well, I'm
can
going to.
keep ourselves alive, we can heal. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to put a quick little story out there.
Okay.
My mother-in-law smoked 40 years. She ended up with mediastinal cancer, which was basically, and it had metastasized. It come from her lungs into her bones. They gave her 6 months. It's 3 to 6 months. She refused treatment. She said, I do not want to be sick the last days of my life. Not that sick. Not like that. So she refused treatment. So about a year later, she was still going, and she ended up with a bad, bad chest cold. And everybody just kind of thought, okay, this cancer's finally getting a grip on her. She went into the hospital and had a chest x ray. And the doctor was asked, okay, how advanced is the cancer now? And he said, she doesn't have cancer. And everybody kind of gasped and like, no, she's got cancer. She's got it. It's metastasized and she's got it. Then the doc said, I'm telling you now, she don't have cancer. So he said that there are scars in her lungs where it looks like she has had a surgery, that something has been removed, could possibly cancer, but she does not have cancer at this moment right now. So she lived another, now mind you, they gave her 3 months. She lived another 3 years cancer free. And eventually it come back. And so now my question is, if she had cancer that bad that it spread to other parts of her body and then was gone and didn't come back for 3 years, was that God's way of saying, look at what I can do anytime I want to? And now she's got another 3 years to get her life right and become, the godly woman that I want her and expect her to be? Or was that, again, the God part of the brain that could fix itself? Or a third turn, is that the God part of the brain that God switched on and then for some unknown reason needed her around 3 more years and then switched it off, and then cancer eventually did kill her. But she got 3 more years that she never expected past 3 months without treatment. And it took no treatment whatsoever.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
That's a
know.
wild story.
Yeah, no kidding.
Uh, well, I definitely, especially considering that you had gone to one group of medical professionals and they said, "Look, she's got cancer. It's metastasized. It's really advanced and bad."
Yeah,
To, hey, she doesn't have cancer. I think that's one of those things that that is a blatantly obvious work of God.
yeah, without a
Um,
doubt. I know it's an incredible story. I know.
especially when you start talking about the complexities of the human body. Uh, it says in the Bible that we are made in God's image. And
Correct.
that is one of those things that is shared
And you know
amongst a lot of religions, is
that
that
is,
we are in some way made in the image of our heavenly Father, Mother, whoever it may be.
and you and I have two trains of thought on that.
Remind me.
Okay, you think physically, and I think spiritually.
Yes, 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 yes. That's correct.
We
Yes.
are made in the image of God spiritually, not so much physically.
I I believe, especially in the case of your mother, if because how else the miracle of the human body and the reason that I use that word intentionally, um, is that there have been hundreds and hundreds of stories about people that they're in a coma for a certain amount of time and
Right,
they come back.
right,
There are people that have miraculously healed themselves, like your mother, and it's completely unexplainable, and we don't know why.
correct.
I think our human body, when it is fed properly, when we get everything that we possibly, that we need as a living creature, that our bodies can do incredible things. And that includes spiritually, right?
Sure,
You have to have that spiritual fill up of believing in something beyond this life and something beyond yourself, because that's the only way you're going to ultimately feel comfortable. Um, I don't.
I know it's insane.
It's this is I'm stroking my beard here, sitting here thinking about it's yeah, honestly, I I think in the case of your mother, it is something physical that God must eh, okay. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to flip that. When I speak about God's hand doing things, and I am thinking of a physical way, like, Donald Trump tilting his head,
Right, just at the right time. Yeah,
spiritual control or spiritual, I guess, effects do not have to be a physical movement or motion. So you might have a point in saying that God must be spiritual because the only way that your your mother would have healed in that way would have been through a spiritual means. Because obviously, it's not like she went into surgery and got all that removed and it was a miracle the operation happened. It just she was fine one day.
yeah.
So, if that's the case, then the argument of God switching on that God part of the brain makes a lot more sense because that is the thing that is activated by the spiritual fill up of your soul.
You know what? We can see chat through what we're doing here, and Seth just said something that I never thought of, and it makes a lot of sense. Seth, what did you say? Come on in here.
What's up, man?
What did you just put in there? That makes so much sense to me right now.
The spirit controls the physical,
The spirit controls the physical.
and I believe God controls the spirit.
Absolutely, 100%. So the spirit controls the physical. And that, okay. So if you look at, we were made in God's image. And if you've ever heard or read the description of what an actual angel looks like, that's why I have a hard time believing that we are in God's image physically. But spiritually, God made us in his image. Now, then we get into free will, and it's up to us what we do with that spirit or soul, so to speak, that makes us in the image of God.
Mm.
That's kind of how I feel about that.
Okay. Let me think for just a moment here on that. Thinking out loud, for the soul, okay. The big question, scientifically speaking, is does the soul exist? I think everyone who is religious in any sort of way, is going to inherently believe in a soul because that is something that is necessary to achieve whatever the next step of existence is.
What if I could prove to you there was a soul?
Well, let me just
Even scientifically, I can prove to you there was a soul.
okay. I'm listening.
Okay. And Keith Age and I talked about this the other day when he was on Awakening Radio, or one of the shows I do. I don't
Yeah,
remember. I do
Awakening
so many
Radio.
shows. Okay. So there have been scientific evidence that people on their deathbed have been on a scale, and I mean an actual weighted scale. At the time of their death, their body weighs 2 to 3 ounces less when they die. And the thinking is that that is your soul leaving your body. And there's been many, many scientific studies on it. Now, nobody can pin it down for sure, but it is awful funny that when somebody dies, that you weigh 2 to 3 ounces less than you weighed before you died.
Interesting. What I'm thinking, okay, what this brings me back in mind of is I think it was 2019, right before COVID happened. Um, there was a some super rich guy that was paralyzed from like the neck down,
Uh-huh.
right?
Okay.
And they were going to attempt to do the first ever head transplant from apparently they had a family member who was willing to give their life for this dude.
Yes, I remember that.
And
Yeah.
okay, you know what I'm talking about then.
Yeah. Yeah.
They ended up not doing it.
Right.
Obviously,
It
COVID
was a
kind of took
morality
prior. Well,
thing. Yeah.
at first it was morality, and then they blamed it on COVID because COVID hit like 2 months after that. But there, I think it is going to take something of that level before humanity as a whole will understand whether or not a soul exists. I
Hmm.
think it's interesting that your body loses weight when you pass them. I assume you talking about the moment of death, right? The
Yes.
moment their heart stops,
Yes.
they suddenly lose a little bit of weight.
2 to 3 ounces. Yes.
That's interesting, but I guess my scientific half of my brain is like, well, that's because your heart stopped creating blood.
Well, but with that, it's still the same amount of blood, though.
It's the same amount of blood that's in your body, but your body is not creating any more, which it has the ability to, your heart has the ability to make blood out of the stuff that you ingest.
Well, I mean, it
But
wasn't like,
but
they just,
I don't think it would be 2 to 3 ounces. I think that's a pretty substantial amount.
yes, I agree. And it wasn't like they did like 15 or 20 of them. I mean, we're talking hundreds of people
Yeah.
that this
Hmm.
study was done on. And each and every one of them weighed 2 to 3 ounces less than they did when they were still clinically alive.
That's that. I mean, that's very, very interesting.
Yeah. So
Um,
that, I mean, that tells me that one, something has left your body that created a mass or a weight. And if that's the case, where did it go? Did it, I mean, is that
okay.
at the point where you go to heaven or hell? I mean,
So
but regardless, it is absent of the body, as
if
the Bible says.
okay, so all right, here's a question. And this kind of goes into a little bit of my writing stuff because I for those of you who don't know, I have two stories: The Adventures of Ruby Starfire and Road Racer. And Road Racer involves some time travel shenanigans as well as some religious stuff, and they're both intertwined. So they're kind of the same story. One's kind of a prequel, one's kind of a sequel. But that's we'll excuse that for now. Do you believe that it is possible for a human person to exist without a soul? Can a human body run on autopilot as, Tracy or as Dylan, but we are, for whatever reason, in that moment lacking our soul and our
No,
awareness of the world around us?
no.
So this is called NPC theory, non-player character theory.
Okay.
And the idea is that there is a fundamental limit to the amount of souls that exist that God has created of individual people. And when the population of the world grows to be too high, there are people that are born that do not they exist as human beings and they have all the abilities that a normal human being can do, but they don't have any sort of internal dialogue. They have no spirituality. They're very, I mean, almost they're lacking in some department to where it seems like they do not have a soul is basically the general concept.
Okay. Well,
And
now, but to me, um, someone who seems like they're lacking a soul would be more demonized
well,
than
you guys talk a lot about serial killers and
correct.
people that like completely lack all sense of morals and value for human life.
Correct.
When you think demon, that's more of what I think of. Right?
Okay.
I
Yeah, I
think
get
of
it.
someone who just they do not have. It's not just they don't have a sense of themselves; they don't have a sense of anyone around them.
Okay.
Period.
Yeah. Then that's somewhat true. Yeah.
Um, I think the idea of a non-player character is actually a very compelling argument, especially when you take a look at our modern society, because there are so many people that are just kind of like tuning out of everything. And I get it, the world's a real screwed up place at the moment, but
Right.
it really, really frightens me that there are like one of the most. Do you remember a few years ago somebody got stabbed in Chicago or shot or something like that in front of
That
a club?
probably happened today.
Well, this happened in front of a club, and for like 2 hours, this guy is laying on the ground crying, begging for help, and people are just walking by him because, they just don't want to get involved. And this
Right.
dude's laying on the ground dying. There's cars going past, there's people walking by,
I do remember that. Yeah.
and it's right in front of a security camera.
Yeah. Uh,
Um, I do not. The sort of person that can walk past someone who is very clearly and obviously suffering in that sort of way and not even consider helping. I cannot fathom that person having a soul because I
well,
think the soul is, if we're saying that the soul is the manifestation of God within us, right?
right.
That is the love and the care of that would include the love and the care of his creation, hypothetically, right?
Yep. But that just goes to show you that the absence of God in your body and mind will allow you to do that and not think a thing about it. So now we're talking about the
But
opposite side.
if you're the absence of God in your mind, then your soul, would be just not having a soul versus having a soul that is tainted by the devil, where you would see that guy laying on the ground and go, "Ha ha, you're dying. Have fun with that,
But
jackass."
yeah, but it's still a soul. It's just not of God. And now you're
Yeah,
talking about something that the devil, in somewhat shape or form, just because the devil's not necessarily going to come to you with a bifurcated tail and a trident in his hand. He's going to look
no,
good. It's going to be shiny. It's going to be a lot of money. It's going to be pretty girls. It's going to be whatever.
yeah,
Um, but the
but
lack of God or the absence of God in your mind and your spirit allows the devil to come in, and demons and the devil will come into your life when you feel that God has abandoned you.
yes, I agree with that. Yes,
And once that gets in there, your lack of compassion for not only human beings but for anything is gone. So that allows you, and it doesn't only happen in that particular case. I mean, how many times have people been laying on the street? I mean, just like in just a homeless guy or girl, whatever, and people walk over them every day. They may
yeah,
not necessarily be dying at that moment, but some of them do. But it's still, you step over them. You got to get to Starbucks,
yeah.
or you got to get to Burger King or whatever. But then you'll step right over them people to do that.
It's a horrible thing. It is,
Yeah, I
and
agree. I agree. And it is. I mean, it has to be a lack of God in your spirit to allow you to step over another human being because your priorities are more important than that person laying in that street or laying on that
okay.
sidewalk.
Do you remember a while ago you asked me if I viewed like Satanism as a religion, and I told you
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
because it's just instead of worshiping God, they are worshiping Satan.
Yes.
So, okay, here's a stupid question, hypothetical question.
Okay.
You have someone who is a self-proclaimed Satanist that believes that, that Lucifer is the true God because he gave humanity, you know, free will and the knowledge of, I guess, creation.
Okay.
Um, if that person starts doing charitable acts,
Uh
if
huh.
person starts acting more in the line of what the Christian faith tells us to,
Okay.
how would you expect God to react to that?
Okay. Well, the Bible plainly tells us that you cannot get to heaven through works. You have to believe that God exists, that Jesus come from the Virgin
Well,
Mary.
if you are a Satanist, you believe God exists because Satan could not exist without God.
Correct.
So he knows of God. He believes that Jesus was born of the Virgin Mary.
Okay. Well, look at it this way then. Everything that God does, Satan does the same exact thing other than the opposite. You see a cross, a normal cross. Well, the Satan cross is upside down.
Yep.
You believe Jesus was the Son of God. The devil has the Antichrist. Exactly what God does, the devil does, but only opposite, if that makes sense.
Yes, theoretically. Although I do have some things about the Antichrist because the Book of Revelation, it's been a while since I've read it.
Mm-hmm.
But the Book of Revelation talks about the second coming of Christ being the birth of the end. It is Jesus. It's the second coming of Christ, but he is here to to do battle against the Antichrist.
Correct.
And then by doing that, he himself becomes the Antichrist, right?
Mm,
Because
well, okay.
it,
The Antichrist is here to kill, steal, and destroy, just like the devil. But what he'll do, he will project himself as the second coming of Christ.
Okay,
He will make you think that he is the second coming of Christ. He will even be shot in the head and miraculously walk out of a hospital. And that's when all these people are going to say, oh my God, it must be Christ. It must be the second coming of Christ. But it's not. It is a facade. It is to get people that don't know their Bibles, that don't know God, that don't know Jesus, to switch and say, this is the second coming of Christ right here. That's Jesus coming back, when it's not. And that's how that's going to play out. He will create peace. Of course, you've heard of the tribulation. You have 3.5 years of peace and then 3.5 years of just absolute hell.
Yep.
You will have to take the mark on your right hand or forehead, or you can't sell, buy, eat, anything. And then he will be shot in the head and miraculously be healed. And that's when all these people are going to say, oh, it's Christ. And it's not.
All right. Okay, let me ask you this then.
Okay.
What about religions that don't have a satanic figure, so to speak?
I feel sorry for him.
Well, like I think about I believe it was Hinduism. They have okay, so Hinduism has like they have a god, but the people worship the gods that are underneath that god. So they're basically, instead of Christianity where we are worshiping God, they are worshiping the angels in a way.
Right. Yeah. Kind of, yeah.
That's the extremely simplified, like, Clip Notes version.
Yes.
And each one of these individual gods has a specific thing they do: love, war, good luck, and good faith. And Buddhism also does a lot of a similar thing, right?
Right. Right.
They do
So,
not have an evil. They have mischievous gods. They have gods of war, but they do not have a god that's just straight up, hey, we're going to kill everybody for the fun of it.
okay. To me, and this is just me thinking out loud. One, if you believe in the Bible says, thou shalt have no other God before me.
But
Number
what
one.
God's under you? Not before you, but under you. Because wouldn't that also, like, Catholic priests? Because
Well,
Catholic
now we're
priests.
opening up a can of worms that Seth is probably going to start sweating about.
Okay. But I mean, but that's kind of a similar thing, right? Because Catholic priests are supposed to be the Catholic's connection to God,
Well,
theoretically.
and yes, and without getting a lot of people pissed off, I think, oh man, I don't even know if I want to say it.
No, you don't have to. I don't want to get you guys in trouble.
Well, no,
But
I'm not worried about getting in trouble, and I'm just worried about getting a bunch of backlash, and I'm really not even worried about that, because you know what? I don't care. That is one of my main problems with Catholic religion. And I know Seth is cringing right now. Okay.
I assume it would be the same for the Hindus and the Buddhists then as well.
Well,
Because
somewhat.
they are worshiping not and okay, in the case of the Catholics, it's not a god that they're worshiping. It is the connection to God that they have to interact with, supposedly.
Okay. Listen, my little neighbor who lives here, she's 84 years old, and she is the sweetest little old lady you've ever met, but she's Catholic. And me and her have some very, very interesting conversations about Catholicism. And I asked her one day, I said, Carol, why do you guys pray to saints when I can pray straight to the guy that I need to be talking to? And she said, well, he's awful busy.
Yeah, that's sort of the same argument I've made in the past.
And I say an all omniscient, all present, all knowing, all seeing God is never too busy to hear every prayer that's put up to him. I don't believe that. I don't need to pray to the saint, the saint or paid of, or the patron saint of, travel or health, or, I can go straight to God. And to me, that is putting other gods before God.
Makes sense.
Um, so,
It's
that's
not, okay, not to say that Catholic saints are gods, but it's not that we're putting gods before gods, but they're creating a middleman to exist in that role,
okay. But why
basically.
do I need the middleman when I can go
But
straight to the guy that's selling me the stuff to begin with?
yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm
Yeah.
just kind of, and I'm
And to,
trying to separate it from what I understand of Hinduism and Buddhism as well.
well, and to that, okay, for me, how can you have a God that is good without evil? Without one, you've got the other. You don't have the other. Because
Well,
how do you know the difference between God, good and
I,
bad?
I,
If
I, I think the argument is, at least for Hinduism, if I'm correct in saying this, I think there is the word omnipotent. Like
yes,
they are not necessarily good or bad.
no, no,
Like
no, omnipotent. Say that again. Omnipotent. Say it.
omnipotent,
Yes,
omnipotent.
is like an all-knowing, all-seeing, all-present.
Okay. What's the word I'm trying to think of in that case then? Basically the god of the main head god. Hold on one second. Let me look it up real quick. That'd be the easiest way to do it. I apologize. I should have
Nope,
came with some better notes.
that's all right. That's what we do, man. So, but to me, it's like I hear people say, "Well, I believe in God, but I don't believe in the devil."
The
Well,
Tramari. That's what it is. It is a
how?
holy trinity. Sorry. Go ahead.
It's like, how do you know that one is good and one is evil if you don't have one or the other? You have to have them
So,
both.
okay. So the way that okay, I got a few things confused here. I want to correct myself. So Hinduism believes in a trinity of higher gods. One exists for creation, one exists for preservation, and one exists for destruction. So they do, it's not an evil god, but they do have one that specializes in death and destruction. Okay.
Okay.
So I just wanted to correct that for the record. Sorry.
And with that, I mean, God is a loving God, but God is also a vengeful God.
Yeah.
How many
Let's
wars have been started over religion,
look.
over you know,
I
since the
mean,
beginning of time?
it doesn't matter which religion. There's
Well,
human beings.
okay,
There has been more human beings slain in the name of name insert your religion here
well, just look at
than any
just.
other reason for conflict.
I mean, look. I mean, Adam and Eve. Cain slew Abel. I mean, and it started there. There's always been, and look at King David. They said, when they entered the gates, they said, "Here comes Saul. He's killed thousands of men." But King David killed tens of thousands of men, and David was a godly man. So there's been death and destruction that has followed God, from since the beginning of time.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
So there's
Mm.
you know what I want to get into, though. I know we're getting close to time. I want to get into free will.
Okay.
Me and you've had many conversations of why the devil got kicked out of heaven
Mm.
and why he took a third of the angels, and when they got here, what happened? You know, and pride is what got the devil kicked out of heaven. Okay.
Mhm.
And how many times do we hear that word today? Pride, pride, pride.
One of my characters in Adventures of Ruby Starfire and Road Racer, Stella Star, is an assassin who uh, ran the earliest parts of her life solely on pride. She was the lioness of this world, and she wanted to control as much as she could. So
And well, that's I mean that the Bible tells us that's why the devil got kicked out of heaven was he wanted to be God's equal, and there is nothing that has ever been created can be God's equal.
No, I agree with that because how can you equal the thing that created you?
Exactly. And
But
I hear people talk about how, well, how do you dispute the Big Bang? You know, okay, I don't. I think the Big Bang happened. I absolutely think it happened. But I think God had his hand on it. So if you look at our solar system, okay, if something explodes, it's jagged, it's non-forming, there's not a pretty much there's our planets are somewhat round. I know somebody's going to say, well, they're cylindrical and they're oblong, but for the most part, they're round. If something explodes, it don't come out as round. So that tells me that if and when the Big Bang happened, God had to have his hand on it too. And on top of that, our Earth is situated far enough from the sun to keep us from burning up, but close enough to this, or closer to the sun to keep us from burn or get us to burn up. And if we were any farther away, we would freeze. You think that's by accident? No way,
no,
man. No, it
absolutely
can't be.
not.
Just can't be.
So, okay, going back to free will for just a moment.
Yeah, I kind of ran it off there a little bit. No, I ran it a
Sorry
little
if
bit.
we're dragging you a little over time, but hey, it'd just be a slightly longer show for everybody, I guess. Um, do you do you believe that you have the ability as a person with free will to fight against God's will?
Absolutely.
So, okay, going back to the previous conversation of if you were supposed to die on a specific day, if you have free will and you can fight against God's will, then you can deny God that the fact of your life, your death, if you try hard enough.
No, I think you have the ability to reject God, but no man has the ability to make his life longer.
You believe that,
Yes, absolutely do. I can't will myself to live longer. If
but
I was on my deathbed,
you can will yourself to have good health. You can will yourself to eat right. You can will yourself to not go to combat zones and run out in front of cars and things of that nature. Don't tie yourself to some
that's
train tracks. You'll probably live a little
well, that's
longer.
kind of called natural selection, is what that's called. But I can't make my heart beat another day or another heartbeat longer than what God says it's going to beat. Now, yes, I can keep myself from walking out in front of that bus. I can keep that gun out of my mouth. I can keep from driving my car into a tree on purpose. But if I'm on a deathbed, if I'm laying there physically and my health is gone, I cannot will my heart to beat another beat more than what God says it's going to beat.
Fair enough. That's I mean, I think that's pretty unequivocal.
And it's just that's if that was the case, how many of us would keep on living?
Well, I mean, eventually your human body is going to deteriorate to the point you can't.
Right.
But, you know, I, I might have to come back on here another time because obviously we gotta
Yeah,
run.
we
But
are out of time. Dylan, tell us what you do with your comic book, where they can find it, where they can find you, maybe give you, give
alrighty.
you a shout out, man.
Um, you can find me on X at Revs with a Z underscore Road Racer. You can read The Adventures of Ruby Starfire on Tapas. That is Tapas. It is a free web like comic and novel area. If you just Google Tapas Ventures Ruby Starfire, you should be able to find it. And thank you guys for having me on. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Hopefully, it wasn't too offensive to the people out there. And
Yeah.
super happy to have such a conversation.
Yeah. And, we had these conversations frequently, you and I.
Yeah.
And so, but I definitely want you to come back on because we got so much more we could talk about. So,
We were worried about filling up an hour. We had no reason to be,
oh yeah,
apparently.
we could do 2 hours easy. So, but guys, check us out on nighthawk-radio.com. Go to the Live 365 app. Look up Nighthawk Radio. Facebook. You can also find all of our old shows on Facebook. Look up Nighthawk Radio. YouTube, Spotify. We are on there. Look up Nighthawk Radio. Be sure to check out the Two Girls One Cut 7 p.m. on Thursday. The Mackenzie Hour Thursdays at 8, Awakening Radio Sundays at 7, and this show is on Monday, 7 o'clock, I think. If not, Seth will tell me. So,
Yeah, 7 o'clock.
see, I knew he was still there. He wasn't asleep. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Seth, take us home, buddy.
Everybody have a good night and God bless.